Hello! Today we will be making a snowman, just in time for the end of the year. And no, unfortunately we are not using snow because I do not live in a place where there is snow. Instead we will be using clay, which, I guess it can stimulate snow. But anyways, you get this lovely holiday festive cat background today. Isn't that a nice change from the plain old white? So anyways, I'm going to start by making a round ball with the clay. And now I'm going to use some water to smooth over the cracks. This is kind of a tedious process, but the clay kind of gets smooth, not really. As you can see, I really struggled getting this ball smooth. Not sure why, it's probably the clay I used. Well, anyways, I'm gonna continue struggling trying to smooth out this very simple ball of clay. I'm smushing it around, smoothing it out with my thumb, getting my hands all dirty with wet clay, which is not the best feeling, so if you can avoid this, I recommend doing that. Not sure how. But anyways, as you saw, I literally smashed it apart and then just redid it. So, all that hard work wasted. Anyways, let's make a second ball, because snowmen usually have more than one balls of snow on them. And I'm using a toothpick as a middle support so that the thing doesn't go, the two balls don't go flying. Yes, I know in real life you don't stick a stick in the middle of a snowman, but this isn't real life. Is it? No, not really. Well, that's great, my snowman can't stand. So anyways, I'm gonna use some glue to glue the joining together, even though there is a toothpick, because toothpicks are not the strongest bonding tool. Aw, the two balls love each other. Okay, that's weird, if you think about it. Yeah. So anyways, I used a dotting tool to try and smooth out the glue in between, but it didn't really work, so just save yourself the effort and don't do it. Now I'm taking a toothpick that is broken in half and sticking them into the snowman for its arms. And now this is where the struggle begins. Again. So I haven't had a lot of real experience with clay. I don't know, what do you call it? So these tool things I use are not actually tools. So as you see, I took a small bit of brown clay and I'm trying to put it around the toothpick as its arms, because sticks are usually brown. Usually you might come across a bright pink stick in some, fantasy land, I guess, but at least not in the world I live in. So this was also a struggle, as I previously stated. I tried to roll it on, I tried to glue it on, and in the end I kind of just slapped it on and hoped it stayed. So I'm now repeating the process with the other stick. And this time it was a lot easier because, I figured out a nice, not sure tactic is the right word, but we're gonna call it a tactic. A tactic to get clay to stick onto a toothpick. This is definitely not how you do it, but it worked. So we're just gonna go with it, and nobody's gonna know in the final result. And now that I've cleaned my hands, I'm gonna glue the sticks on for good. At least I hope so. Nobody asked about this, but if you were wondering what type of glue I use, it's literally the regular school glue. Well, not the glue sticks, but the regular school liquid glue. And now, look, I'm making another ball. Time to torture myself again. But this time it's gonna be the bottom tier because I decided 2 ball things is not good enough. We need 3. So this time I tried a slightly different way of gluing the toothpick in. I put glue on the toothpick and on the inside. Then I just stuck the 2 balls together. This probably isn't the right way to do it. Actually, yeah, this definitely isn't the right way to do it, but I don't know any other way, so. And now I'm gonna make a scarf. So I'm making this purple, which I actually changed later because blue is better, in my opinion. So when you're mixing acrylic paints into clay, I recommend using gloves to do it because the acrylic paint can get all over your hands, which is probably not what you were going for. But anyways, yeah. It works if you don't wear gloves, as you just saw me do. Now I just took the ball of clay and I squished it around into a cylinder shape, and I'm using my fingers to roll it and make it longer like a really long snake. Now I'm whipping out the rolling pin. So I'm using this to gently flatten the roll, which is gonna make the scarf, like flat like a knitted scarf, like not a tube scarf. And now I'm realizing that this is way too thick and way too big. So I'm using something to cut it down. You could use toothpicks to do it, but I find that toothpicks are a bit too thick. So I'm cutting the edges so it makes a nice even line. And you should probably use a ruler to do this, but let's be honest, that's way too much work. So just trimming it up some more, testing it out. It's too thick, so we're gonna flatten it. Yay! And of course, when you flatten it, it also gets thicker. So, cutting it again. This is a lot of cutting. If you don't like cutting, this probably isn't the project for you. So, why don't you go check out another project that you can do? Link in the upper right hand corner, the self-promotion. Okay, anyway, so I'm using a dotting tool to smooth the scarf into the indents, and the back is a little rusty, I will say that. It's not exactly the best. Look at my snowman just wandering off on its own, starting to fall. And I'm using brown to make a top hat, but you could also make a beanie or something else. So to make the top hat, I first made a ball using the brown clay, and then I used a rolling pin to slightly flatten it out. This is the base, and then I just made another ball with some more brown clay, and then I stuck it on top, and I'm using a toothpick to smooth out the joining so it's like it doesn't look like something's on top of it, it's like attached. And so as you saw, I had to kind of smooth out the snowman head so that the top hat would go on, because the top hat is flat, surprisingly. And now the toothpick gluing method again. Yes, the fine art of the toothpick gluing. And now I'm going to make the eyes and the buttons, which is what makes the snowman alive. I mean, snowmen aren't alive, but like, it gives the impression that it's alive. So I'm taking brown clay and I'm making tiny little balls, and then I try to use my dotting tool to make like indents, but that didn't work, so just don't do that. And I spared you the rest of having to watch me make tiny balls with brown clay. So now I'm gonna stick them on, and of course it doesn't stay on permanently, so you have to end up gluing it later, but I just stuck them on to see what it looks like first. And for the eyes, I'm using slightly bigger balls than the ones that I used for the buttons, because the eyes are coal pieces, I think. So now I'm using some of the white clay, and I'm going to use it to make a carrot nose. So this was a very interesting process. At first I tried to just smash it onto the toothpick. That did not work. Then I tried to make it and then stick the toothpick in. That seemed to work a little bit better. And of course, you gotta make the toothpick the right size, so you can't use an oddly long toothpick, otherwise the snowman is gonna have a stick sticking out of the back of its head, which is not good. And trying it on, I realized that it was way too big. So I did it again, so it's smaller. It looks normal. Just look, it has an oddly big nose. I have nothing against oddly big noses, but the snowman was just not having it. So I removed all of the buttons and eyes, I let them dry on their own, and I painted the nose using orange paint. You have to get creative with how you let this thing dry. I just stuck it into a styrofoam board. And now this is officially the painting portion of the video. I'm using white paint to paint the snowman, even though it's already white. It got a little dirty. So after I painted that, I'm using black paint to go over the top hat. tried the brown look, it just wasn't, I didn't like it, so I went over it with black. And you have to be really careful on the inside so you don't get black paint everywhere. And now this is when I decide to change my mind. I don't like the light purple, I want a light blue, so I painted it light blue. Yes, it was very difficult to get on the very edges, but I made it work. And now, speed running. I'm fixing up the edges. This was probably the quickest painting portion of a video that's ever happened. But anyways, so now I'm gluing all the parts on, starting with the nose. Like before, I'm applying glue onto the toothpick and then sticking the toothpick into the snowman body. We have not seen this before today. Also, I used a paintbrush to smooth out the glue so you don't end up with lumps. Now, moving on to all the buttons. Eyes. This is the part that's a little tedious because the I'm going to continue to roll out thin pieces of clay and shape them into numbers. The 1 was the easiest, I wonder why. It's definitely not because it's just a stick. Now I'm using a small dotting tool end and some black paint, and I'm going to dot on the mouth. What are snowman mouths even made of? Now here's when I try to glue the numbers on. So I used the button technique where I just put glue onto the surface I was going to glue it onto and then put the dried object on it. And that seemed to work, except there were some lumps everywhere, so I used the paintbrush method again. Wow, we established a lot of methods in this video, didn't we? It's amazing. And now once that is dry and the numbers are on securely, I'm going to apply a layer of varnish over it just to seal in everything. And since I did paint it, I don't want the paint chipping off, so this will prevent that from happening. Of course, I definitely applied multiple layers of varnish, maybe close to 100. Okay, not that extreme. But I did that all off camera, so you wouldn't have to sit here for like 2 hours watching me varnish this. And now for the last time, I'm going to try and set the snowman up. This was quite difficult to set the snowman up for some reason. So then I used a piece of yarn and I pulled it through the eye pin. And here is the snowman hanging on my Christmas tree. I think it fits in very nicely.
Ooh, is that an ornament? I want ornaments. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, yum, yum. Oop, it's done. Goodbye, 2021.